I don't even know. All right, I'll tell her I'm on. All right. Good evening. Hi, Lisa. Can you see me? I'm letting Marva in. Can you hear me? Let's see if your phone's on mute. Do you see the, let me text you. Can you hear me? Hello? I'm trying to get Lisa to,
I can hear you.
You can hear me, Lisa?
Hey, oh, Lisa, you look beautiful.
Yeah. Hi.
I'm trying to fix myself up.
So, good evening, everyone. This is Mask Off by Shauna Turner. This is my episode 6 is Lisa Crowe's story. We're going to hear from Lisa right now. So, Lisa, you're looking good. Tell us your story.
Okay, I was arrested in December 11th of 2015. Was taken to the county jail. I kept complaining about complications I was having from a cancer surgery because I was a stage 4 cancer survivor. And I'd had another surgery in January of 2015. And the county jail continued to tell me that there wasn't anything that they could do for me, that I had to wait until I was final sentenced and went to the Bureau of Prisons. So in August of 2016, I was final sentenced and I was taken to Lexington, Kentucky, satellite camp for women. Mm-hmm. And they had started the process of getting me in to see an oncologist. And I'd went and got a bone density scan done. And the paperwork was processed for me to go see an oncologist, but I was waiting on the BOP to approve it. June of the next year, the following year, which was June of 2018, the BOP had still not approved me to see an oncologist, and I was transferred from Lexington, Kentucky federal prison camp to Alderson, West Virginia federal prison camp. Once I got there, the process would have to be started over for me to go see an oncologist, and the doctor that was there refused to let me go out and see an oncologist, even though I was having complications that was basically signs that the cancer was back. One of the tumors that I had kept being diagnosed as constipation. That was from the middle of 2017 all the way up until October 25th, 2019. I was treated for constipation. Mm-hmm. I had a mass that was on my sternum that ate through my muscle lining, went into the sternum bone and spread into my ribs and the sternum bone, and took over basically the whole thoracic area. And that was diagnosed as scar tissue from the double mastectomy that I'd had in 2006 from my original cancer. Once I had some discoloration started coming up around where that mass was at on my sternum, and then that was diagnosed as just from the radiation, even though my radiation was done in 2007 and we're up into 2017 and 2018. When 2018 rolled around, I started having severe complications on breathing. I was struggling to breathe. I kept going to sick call, telling them I was struggling to walk up and down the hill. I was becoming short of breath, just simply talking, having a simple conversation. And I couldn't get any tests ran. I finally had to start going to the warden, assistant warden, and I finally did get an x-ray done in 2018. Only to find out they had told me that everything came back good on that x-ray. But later on in 2019, when I got my medical records, I found out that the x-ray was done on my right lung. It was never done on my left lung. But for over a year, that was diagnosed as a torn muscle, and still could not get out to see an oncologist. Around July of 2019, I became critical. I started struggling to the point I couldn't walk. I was losing mobility in my left leg. I was losing control of my bowel and bladder. Um, my blood pressure was dropping so low, and the pain was the most unbearable pain that I'd ever felt. Still, I was told every time I had these spells, and the lieutenant would call uh, the doctors, they would tell me to come to sick call the next morning. And once again, I would be treated for constipation or just basically toe scar tissue or torn muscle. And I had to be patient and wait for the torn muscle to heal on its own, that there was nothing they could do for me.
Mm.
On October 25th, I had another really bad spell. It was during the daytime. I was in the RDAP program, which is the Residential Drug Abuse Program. And the counselors had came in and seen the condition I was in. And they had got me over to medical. And when I got over there, blood pressure, I believe, was 75/44. They still ignored the fact of all my medical conditions and said, oh, she's probably just dehydrated, hook her up to fluids. The nurses tested my urine and seen that I wasn't dehydrated. And at that point, an ambulance was called and I was sent to the emergency room. Once I got to the emergency room, I begged and I pleaded with the doctor there not to send me back to the prison to please test me, that I was scared that the prison would do any tests for me, and I hadn't seen an oncologist since I had been incarcerated since 2015. She did a CT scan, and she came back and said the cancer had metastasized throughout my body. It was in my liver. I had pleural infusion in my left lung, 4 nodules in my left lung. It had taken over my entire sternum, spreading to my rib cage. The other tumor had invaded the hip bone. It was in my vertebrae and had taken over the femur bone, which is why I was losing the mobility of my left leg. So the whole time, the doctors at the BOP continued to say, comically, there was no reason why I couldn't, my left leg wasn't functioning properly, but yet wouldn't run no tests to try to figure out why my left leg quit functioning. I was having to use basically a wheelchair or having to hold to someone. The lieutenants and the warden had proved that I could hold to other inmates' arms, because in the federal prison system, you're not allowed to touch. So I was allowed to be assisted by other inmates to hold to, and eventually was given a bus pass because my mobility had decreased so bad that I was actually falling and stuff. I really wanted to tell this story, because when I was there, I felt like I was all alone.
Right.
And Marcia King had one of my friends that was there. And I really didn't know her very well until I'd gotten sick. And then we became very close. And he had put me in contact with her sister, Marva. And Marva started advocating for me. And she went full force as though I was her own sister. We became family through this process. And that's how my name became known. And we got some congressmen and senators involved, and we started reaching out to the Kentucky state representatives and stuff, just pleading for help from anybody that we could get help from, just to get me proper testing. And it seemed like every door that we tried to open wound up getting shut in our face. As Marva continued to advocate constantly for me, it started bringing in a lot of other advocacy agencies and stuff. The National Council had got involved, and I took my case before the Nancy Pelosi and the Senate, the Judiciary Senate Committee, and I continued to speak with Congressman Davis out of Illinois, trying to plead for help. And, I just want the public to know how serious the neglect is within the prison system. Mm-hmm. I'd heard stories, through family, through friends throughout the years, but until I had experienced myself, I never could believe the inhumanity that was within the walls that we out in the public, we don't see. And
Right.
it's hard for us to believe that another human being, especially human beings that took an oath, as such as doctors and nurses and so forth, to deliberately neglect us and to laugh at us and to make a mockery of us when we're so sick. There was a time before I could get any testing done when I was at Alderson, West Virginia. There was two nurses in there. They had done my vitals, and I'd been begging for almost a year for help because I was so sick. And I literally got on my hands and knees and started praying in front of them and asked them to please help me, that they could reach out to people on the outside and get me help,
Right.
that the system was failing me. And they smirked and they laughed and basically was said their job was more important. And when I finally got transferred to Carswell, Texas in January of 2020, when I got there, no doctors wanted to see me. I couldn't really get an answer as to why. I was put on the fourth floor as like a boarder. That's where they put the ladies at that are pregnant and are addicted, and they have to monitor them because where they're pregnant and they were on medications. And I kept telling them I needed help, I needed assistance, and I kept getting worse and worse. And they kept telling me I needed to wait until I saw the oncologist. So from the time I was arrested, December 11th of 2015, I never saw an oncologist until January, the end of January of 2020, even though I was a stage 4 cancer survivor who had positive cancer margins that went into my chest wall.
Wow.
And I had multiple signs and symptoms that showed that the cancer was back. And one being my left lung and me struggling to breathe and the pain that I was having in my lung area. And then, of course, in my chest wall, my sternum, to have a knot and the discoloration, but still couldn't get the proper testing that I needed to just check to see if the cancer was back. Everything was disregarded and was minimized. I began to reach out to the uh, regional director over Alderson, West Virginia. I wrote him a letter. I attached all my medical records showing all the misdiagnoses since 2017. And I was ignored on that. I wrote multiple electronic cop-outs to the warden and the assistant warden, close to a little over 20 of them, I believe there was. And I think I got maybe 3 responses, and they were very short, simple, and vague, and just told that they were looking into it. Never really got much answers back as to what was going on. And then they kept telling me a test was scheduled for me in 2019, but weeks and then months went by and still I was never taken out to get no test done. And I still really and truthfully don't know if there was ever a CT scan ever really scheduled for me to go out, because they had told me from the end of July, beginning of August, that a CT scan was scheduled for me, and we were just waiting on the appointment date. And as of October 25th of 2019, I'd still not been taken out. So if it wasn't for me falling out and hitting my head and my blood pressure dropping out on October the 25th, I would have never got off that prison grounds to actually get the proper testing that I needed to know the cancer was back. But once I got to Carswell, which was supposed to be a medical center, I walked onto that 4th floor, and I've never felt a heavier heart in my life as the day that I walked on that 4th floor. I seen some of the sickest human beings that I've ever seen in my life, and I've watched them be treated as inhumane as anything that I've ever seen. I've seen people be less cruel to an animal and get in trouble and get their animals taken away and get fined and charges put on them for doing less than what the staff, as far as medical and staff members at Carswell, was doing to the elderly and very, very crucially sick women that was on that 4th floor. I was in a a room with three other women. There was four of us in there. One of the ladies recently passed away. She had an infection in her leg for well over a year. And I would watch the infection pour out of her leg, and the bandages would be so soiled that she would cry about how her skin was burning, and they would refuse to change her bandages. And they had changed them 2 or 3 hours ago. They say you can wait, even though the bandage was completely soiled and the infection was pouring down her leg into her shoes, that she would have to put orange peels in her shoes to try to kill the infection smell out of her shoes.
Wow.
And I asked one of the nurses that was there at Carswell, I said, you all took an oath. Where is the oath that you all took when you all became nurses and doctors? And she told me that when you become working at the BOP, that you first are an officer, and second, you're a healthcare provider. That the whole oath, the medical oath, is not honored within the BOP, that they are first an officer and then medical provider. And when she told me that, I was speechless. I didn't even know what to say.
Yeah.
And, I sat and I thought, I thought of many times on that, what her saying that, and things I wish I would have said to her, and questions I wish I would have asked her, but I was so speechless. At that point, I didn't even know what to say to her. And, as society as a whole, we get out of prison and life goes on, become so busy that we forget about all the bad stuff and forget about the people that we left behind. And there's people dying in there, people that are dying that should die. I was in there, they gave me a treatment for 4 months, a chemo treatment. A month into this treatment, they knew that the treatment was not working. They knew that the cancer was spreading. It had spread into my bronchial tubes, and it had spread into my neck, and the nodules in my lungs had got dramatically larger. I have been home since June the 23rd of 2020, and since being home, the cancer in my liver is now gone. One of the tumors is gone. The other tumor is shrinking dramatically. The pleural infusion that was in my left lung is completely gone. The nodules in my lung has all gotten smaller. The cancer has not spread anymore, and every spot that still has cancer in it has dramatically gotten smaller. But yet the system continued to take a treatment for 3 additional months, knowing that it wasn't working. Mm-hmm. They allowed this cancer to continue to spread and to invade my body, to the point that the last test that was taken, it had spread into my muscles. And at some point, we have to stand up and we have to speak. So many people said, aren't you afraid of what they're going to do to you? And I said, what is there to be afraid of? What more can they do to me? They gave me a death sentence. Mm-hmm. My cancer can't be cured. There's no cure for me. All they can do is prolong my life and give me as much longevity and as much peace as they can give me from the pain. I mean, I'm enduring bone cancer, which is a pain that is indescribable. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm 43 years old. I just turned 44. And it doesn't make no sense. And when you see, and it's just not me. Right. And it's not one prison that's doing it. I was at 3 different prisons, and they were one and the same. I watched many people that was sick and would beg, plead for help day in, day out, and would go to every staff member they could go to, and they were completely ignored. Mm-hmm. I would go to sick call, and each time I would go to sick call, by the grace of God, my sister was there in Carswell, my biological sister.
Okay.
So the one took me the places I needed to go, and if she wasn't there, there's no way I would have been able to got to where I needed to go. Mm-hmm. And I'd go to sick call, and each time I was turned away. I was told that my condition was chronic, that I couldn't be seen at sick call, but yet nobody would help me, and no doctors would see me. They kept telling me to see the oncologist, but I didn't see the oncologist until the end of January. And then when I seen her, she says, I don't do those things because I was needing my wheelchair. I was needing my leg rest. I was needing Depends. I was needing bed chucks. I was needing assistance to help clean myself up when I would lose control of my organs. And the oncologist said, I don't do that. You have to see the doctor at the prison. But the doctor at the prison refused to see me. So finally, in March, I went to the RDAP staff. I pleaded for help, and they went through the social worker. And between the group of RDAP staff and the social worker, they got a hold of the director there at Carswell, and he put in for me to go and see the physical therapist to do a strength and mobility test on me. And within 30 minutes of that, me getting that test done, I was admitted into the hospital part of the prison, which is where I should have been from the first day I got there.
Right, right.
But I was continue to be completely ignored by every staff member that was there. My case manager, every time I would try to ask her a question, I was told she wasn't there to answer questions. She was there to be pretty.
Oh,
She didn't just say. She told it to multiple women. They would try to ask her questions, but we're supposed to go to our case manager. We only have one. There was nobody else for us to go to. We try to go to someone else. I'd go to someone else and say, I need help with this, or I need this question answered, or whatever. And I was told, you have to go to your case manager. But yet she wouldn't ever want to answer a question because she said she was only there to be pretty. I was turned away each time. Throughout the process of one of the occasions we sat in the social work, or the case manager that I had that retired from there, we sat outside of her door waiting for her to be seen by her during her they have set hours that you can be seen. It's called their open house. And we sat out there. We were the first ones there, and I was so weak I laid my head against the wall. And 2 hours had passed by. She continued to let other women go in front of us. Mm-hmm. And there was about 4 ladies that was left. I was there with my sister, and she came to the door, and she, all of us that was left sitting there were white ladies. Mm-hmm. And she said, all you snow bunnies can leave and y'all can come back tomorrow. Well, when tomorrow came, wow. She closed her open house. She didn't have open house. She canceled it. And to be so sick that you can't even put your head up and to sit somewhere, it's like sick call, or at your counselor or your case manager's open house for hours, not just minutes, but hours, and then be turned away and told, come back tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and they refuse to see you. I couldn't get no questions answered. I was told that I was coming home on COVID. I was put in a room and started the quarantine process with 3 other ladies who was getting to come home on COVID as well. That Monday, the social worker and a case manager and another lady had came in to let us know that none of us was going home. And when we asked why, what was the reason, they said they didn't have to have a reason. They didn't have to tell us no reason. Still to this day, I still don't know the reason why we were put in quarantine. They told us to call our family, make arrangements to be picked up. And they even went as far as starting my travel arrangements to see what equipment I needed to take, if I needed a staff member to go with me to assist me. And told me to contact my family to see who was going to pick me up at the airport. And then started the quarantine process through the weekend to come in and tell us that now, no, you're not going home, but didn't even give us a reason. Wow. And to be in there sick and dying, and you know that you've got a deadly disease, and you know this disease is went to a point that there's no cure for you because the doctors just told you. And to finally have that hope that you're going home, you're going to get to see your son, you're going to get to make that amends with your family and to be there with them, and to continue to have that rug jerked out from under you is devastating. Yes. Like, I don't understand where the humanity comes in to play with how these people continue to play with inmates' lives. And I don't care what anybody has done in prison. At the end of the day, somebody out there loves us. Right. You know, people wants us to come home. and they care for us. And to be just treated the way that we were treated, and the way that I seen women there treated, um, I didn't even feel like I was in America. I felt like I was in some third world country. Uh, I felt like that fourth floor, the only thing different from some third world country was it didn't have a dirt floor.
Mm.
And so the reason I'm going to tell my story, and I want to continue to tell my story, regardless of repercussions, is there has to be change. Change has to come from this.
Yes. So,
Um, my life can't be the same.
no, it will not be. Why would there be repercussions for you telling the truth? Why would that happen?
Well, while we were in prison, there was a lot of ladies would reach out to like newspapers, um, people who would like tell their story on like the radio and magazines and stuff like that, and they would be put in the hole. They go to the shoe, and though they would tell that they were being put in the shoe for something other than that reason, everybody knew why they were going to the shoe. They would speak to the media, and that day or within a day or two, they were being put in the shoe with a write-up over something that wasn't even true.
And that's like retaliation for no fault of your own. So that put fear in a lot of people, right?
Yeah. And one of the things they had done to me, I got to Carswell in January, and like I said, the fourth floor, one end is the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
where they admit you into the hospital part, and the other almost kind of like a nurse section, and the middle is what they call for boarders, and that's mainly the pregnant ladies who are there due to drug addictions, and they have to monitor on medications to keep the baby from having detoxing and stuff like that. And so they had me in as a boarder, and from January till I believe it was March the 8th when I was admitted into the hospital part. But while I was still a boarder, a staff member had came into me, being real threatening and a real sharp tone, and kept telling me, said, you need to tell your family and your friends to stop calling, because Marva was advocating so hard. I mean, like, she was not letting down with these people, and we had so many followers. They were just calling, and they were writing letters, and they were calling the prison, and nobody was letting up. And they said, you need to tell your family and friends to quit calling here, quit harassing and calling the BOP, and quit calling Washington. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And they said, well, you're going to go to the SHU. And I said, well, then let's go now. What do I need to take with me? Because 24 hours in this room or 24 hours in the SHU is still 24 hours. So are y'all going to go lock my lockers, or do I need to pack my stuff up and take it with me? And they turned and walked out of the room. Um, but it comes to a point that people are threatened in there, and there is retaliation. And, they'll come in and they'll shake your lockers down, tear your stuff up, and they'll dump all your stuff on the floor. And, a lot of people, they struggle. They don't have family that can just send endless money just for the staff members to go in and tear their stuff up and dump all their food on the floor and stuff like that. So people are afraid to file the B9s and 10s and 11. They're afraid to, when a regional is coming. I know at Alders and at Carswell both, the staff would tell, when regionals here, don't you all approach them. If you approach them, there's going to be repercussions.
Wow.
And they would make it clear that we couldn't talk to regional. And so people would be afraid. It was time for them to go home, or they didn't want to get a write-up and lose 27 good days, or that write-up to affect them from not being able to get the time off for the bills that was passing and stuff like that. So then when people gets out, they're afraid of what the halfway house can do to them, or they've done something they didn't do just to send them back to prison. So people's afraid to tell their story, but at some point, this isn't something that can be changed by one person or one person's story. This is going to take an army of people to stand up and say, hey, enough's enough.
Right.
Because what I can sit here and say, I'm never going to do anything to go back to prison, but one day it might be my child, my loved one, my friend. They might be sitting there. And for us to fight this fight now and to get changes done that needs to be made, look at the lives it's going to save.
Yes, yes.
If we do nothing else with our lives, I mean, shouldn't we do something to save humans? Human life.
Absolutely.
We're
Yes.
not animals. I don't care what choices we've made in life.
Absolutely.
You know, I've got a child that loves me more than anything. I went into prison when he was 15. I came out when he's 20. The devastation that has come over his life is beyond words because he didn't get to finish school. We're now trying to get him to get his GED. There's a program that's going to help him to go through while he's doing his GED to do a trade school.
Right.
And but he was afraid to go to school because of the situation. He didn't know what was going to happen. He was afraid he was going to get taken into foster care, and it's really affected his life in a really bad way. And now we're trying to pick up all those pieces and put them together. And I'm sick of having to do this.
Yes, yes. And the unethical things that occur, who isn't there a chain of command like for accountability, regardless of what they're telling you guys what's going to happen to you, they have to answer to someone, correct?
There is a chain of command in every situation, and I'll kind of explain how this chain of command went. You know, I've filed for my compassionate release, and every time it goes before my judge here in Kentucky, he denies it. Um, my lawyer had contacted me with my counselor, and she did a call, and I wasn't allowed to have a private attorney call. She sat there and listened. My sister was in the room as well, and he told all the documents that he was needing for me to send to him so he could provide to the courts. And I got all those documents together, and I was sending it priority mail to make sure that it got there as quickly as possible so it had enough time for him to review it and to be able to file it with the documentation that needed to go to the judge to show him that my cancer was spreading and I was getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 days went by, and he still had not received my box. He was supposed to have it within 1 to 3 business days. He hadn't received my box, so I went to my counselor, and I asked her, I said, did you mail my priority box out because he hasn't received all my paper? She said, oh, yeah, I mailed it. She gave me the date that she mailed it. And a week and a half later, it went by, and now it's the deadline. We have to file it. It was on I believe it was the 11th of February, I believe is what it was. And so my lawyer had to go ahead and file it without those very important pertinent documentation that the judge needed to see that the BOP was not being honest. They continued to say I was doing better, but yet my showed that the cancer was continuing to spread at a high rate of speed throughout my body. And he had to file it without those paperwork. And of course, the very next day, the judge denied it once again. And so I went on a search for my box of paperwork because I wanted to know where it was and what had happened to it. Find out my counselor had kept it in her office. She blatantly lied to me that she had mailed it, and it mailed. And the way I found out is another staff member was upset about it, and he actually gave me a copy of the paper that showed the day she actually brought my priority box down and mailed it. So I started the BP process to file against her, and I did the 8.5. I took the 8.5 and turned it in. And when, because I didn't turn it into her, I turned it into my unit manager, and it never did get processed. Still to this day, it never got processed.
Wow.
So when they see that it's going to cause problems for one of their colleagues, your paperwork disappears and the threat starts and they won't do anything to help you. And so people, a lot of times they'll say, you know, if I file 8 or a 9 on them, when it's time for me to get halfway house time and stuff like that, they're not going to give me time. And so out of fear of retaliation and loss of good time and loss of the stuff tore up and destroyed and poured in the floor, people just sweeps it under the rug and they keep it moving and just hope and pray to God that they can make it home. That for some of us, we're not so fortunate.
Right. Absolutely. And this is why you're here today. You're being the voice for a lot of inmates that are going through, even right now, that you're out, but you're still going through, but they're still going through the things that you're speaking of. So and that's important that you know, be the voice. I just feel like once you are sentenced and whatever your time is that you're supposed to do, once you're inside the prisons or the jails, I feel like no human that's supposed to be in authority should give you all these other sentences. That's what it sounds like to me. Like, that's what I'm getting from this. And regardless of, you know, what you did, like you said, it's inhumane. We have dogs and pets, but you know, you do something to a pet, you definitely gonna get in trouble, you know. So why isn't it the same for human being, mankind? So I'm so sorry to hear, you know, that you've had to go through all these things. And just to speed everybody up, that where are you at right now with everything with you and your journey?
Okay, so for me, you know, I came home. I'm on the ankle monitor. My date is August of 2022. And so once I got to the halfway house, they basically put the ankle monitor on me and I got to come straight home. Due to COVID, the only place I'm allowed to go is to my doctor's appointments, and that's it. Like, I've asked if I could try to go to my storage to see, you know, because I needed clothes. You know, there's necessities that I needed when I got home. Marva did a cat for me, and I was so grateful and thankful for that because so many people reached out. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have had a way or a means to get the things that I needed. Because my fiance, he's a disabled veteran, and you know, he's on a tight budget, you know, with bills and our mortgage payment and stuff like that. And so there's not a lot of extra money just laying around just to go and buy a new wardrobe of clothes and this, that, and the other. So many people had reached out and donated money to me, and that was huge. You know, such a huge weight and burden lifted off from me. But here's the what I'm going through now. How the system works is when you come home on that ankle monitor, you are still under the care of the BOP. So they still have the jurisdiction over you. So they are the ones that pays all my medical bills still. So everything has to go through them and has to get approved. And if anybody who's been in prison knows that the BOP don't get no hurry to approve anything. So my chemo medicine was all submitted in on June the 24th. And I didn't get my treatments until last Thursday. And we had a fight with the BOP all that time to get it. And I'm still waiting on a nebulizer from Marva, and Marcia King wound up ordering me a nebulizer and had online. The BOP sent me home with the medicine to put in the nebulizer, but they didn't have the machine. So my doctor ordered that back in June, and I'm still waiting on the BOP to approve the nebulizer. So as far as they're aware, I'm sitting here without being able to do my breathing treatments. But thankfully for Marva and Mark, they sent me the machine, so I've been able to get my breathing treatments done.
Awesome.
And
Amazing.
you think that there's so many people that gets out of prison, they're not as blessed, fortunate as I have been to have the friends and the support that I've had through this journey and through this process. and without all these women and men that I've never ever even met, and all they've done for me, if it wasn't for them, I don't know what I would have done. I truly don't. Like, words will never be enough to like express my gratitude and how thankful and blessed I am for them to be a part of my life. And not everybody that gets out of prison has that. And and so still to be home and to spend every single day through the week, my fiance literally stays on the phone all day, just about every single day, fighting with the BOP, trying to get my medicines approved. Something as simple as a calcium pill that I have to take with the Kisqali, which is medicine. It was like $30, and they said, "Well, you're just going to have to buy it." But if you're someone that's just got out of prison, you have no source of income right now.
Right.
$30 is a lot of money.
Yes.
So we had to fight for 2 weeks with the BOP to cover a calcium pill that probably isn't even costing them $2 or $3 through the pharmacy.
Right. Well, is anybody said why does it take them so long? So they don't
They,
have to answer to anyone either when it comes down to getting your medicine? Because this is and don't take this the wrong way, taxpayers' money to fund like the prisons. Am I correct? So people need to know what their tax-paying dollars are going to and what's happening too, right? Am I correct?
yeah. Here's the process. Dismiss Charity is the halfway house that I'm at. And my case manager there is really, really super wonderful. Like, I really got a good case manager who really fights and does everything she can do. But at the end of the day, her hands are tied because she's so low down on the totem pole that there's only so much she can do. So the process that has been explained to me how it works is I go to the doctor. Well, first you have to get an approval. You got to let them know a few days in advance, and she submits the doctor's appointment into the BOP, and they'll send back an approval, and they'll put a move in for you. So then we have to call, and we got to make sure the move is approved. So when I go to the doctor, if he orders, let's say, some medicine, he has to fax the medication over to the halfway house. And then I have to take a picture of the prescription, and I have to email it to her. She then submits it to Washington. Once Washington has approved it, they send it back to her with a form. Then she has to send it to the insurance company of the BOP. Once they submitted it and approved it, they send her a form back. When she gets it, then she submits the form to the doctor's office, and the doctor's office has to fax it to the pharmacy. So it takes, she said everything has to be submitted at least 10 days in advance, but she'd prefer to be in 15 days, but at a minimum of 10 days. And a lot of times the 10 to 15 days is not even enough time. And so it's not just as simple as, oh, I've got a doctor's appointment next week. You have to go through a whole process to get that doctor's appointment approved. And then you've got to follow up and make sure that it's on the move. And then when I leave my house, I have to call. As soon as I get to the hospital where my doctor's at, I have to call and let them know I'm there. As soon as I leave the hospital, I have to call them. As soon as I walk in my house, I have to call them again. So the stress and the worry of trying to do all this and getting to the car and getting everything faxed over to them. And then you've got the nerves of, am I going to mess up something and do something wrong? They're going to find a reason to send me back to prison.
Oh my God. Yes.
So, on top of being sick, you've got the stress and the worry of afraid that you're going to do something so small and so minor that they'll use that as an excuse to send you back.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to come back to you again, but I would like to bring Marva on so that she can tell a little bit of the walk that she took with you, Lisa. Is that okay? I mean, you stay here. So, and then you can continue, from there after she's done, and if Russell's available can say, if he wants to say something about being, there for you. So Marva, will you please come in, Miss Marva King?
I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes. Can you see her, Lisa?
Yeah, I can see you.
Yes. Thank you for coming on tonight.
No problem. So this was, I would say this was one of the most, it was most difficult, and it was this was a very emotional advocating case that I ever had.
Yes.
And initially when Marsha, when I heard about Lisa's story, and I saw Lisa's picture, I didn't know if I could do it. I never said this to Lisa. I never said this to Marsha, but when I first got it, because of the, the cancer and the health issue, I felt like that's taken on a lot, because it's like now her life was in my hands, kind of. That's the way I felt. And so I had never done a health advocating before. I'd never done it before, and I was very afraid to do it. And the biggest thing is, the more I advocated for Lisa and talked about her situation, I end up having a friendship with her, which is, you don't want to say, as an advocate, you don't have like a personal relationship with them, because I've advocated for a lot of people. But Lisa's the only one I develop a personal friendship with. It's because her case is so emotional. I felt the same way. You have a lady in prison who's very sick, who's pleading to everybody for help. It was very heartbreaking to see Lisa sometimes plead for help, because I walked through it and I saw her go through it. And I'll never forget the time when she was in Carswell a few months ago. We had a video visit. It was very heartbreaking to see her, because at that time, that's when she told me, because a lot of times she didn't tell me how she was being treated. And I don't know what it was, but I had heard, I started feeling like Lisa wasn't doing as well as I thought she was doing. So I said to her, we need to video visit at least once a week, because I need to see you and make sure you're doing okay. That's what I said to her. So she said, okay, and we did the video visit. And I never forget, I think it was the second video visit we did. She was so hurt by the way they treated her. And she was inconsolable. I tried to console her as much as I could with telling her, don't worry about the fact that they're treating you this way. Just, we care about you. Just a lot of people out here that care about you. But she was so broken at that time, because she had taken so much from them, so much mistreatment from them. And it's like, no matter what I said, she just broke down and cried. And I think Lisa had cried, I think at least for 3-4 days, and maybe more, that I don't even know about, because they treated her so bad. And I say to her a lot of times, because we talk almost every day. I send her a text, or we talk on the phone, just whatever. And I could never have been Lisa Crowe.
Me neither.
Because I would be honest and say, if I had went through what she gone through, I probably would have died in prison.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the mental and the strength to make it through the way that she did. Because not only was she very sick, but she was being very mentally mistreated. And when you're sick, you become very vulnerable. And I saw her vulnerability. And to go through that and see the things that I end up learning later on that she saw and the things that she went through. I tell her all the time when I say her name, Lisa Crowe, I said, Lisa, your name has such strength to it. It's a story that needs to be told, because everybody wouldn't have made it through the way that she did.
Absolutely.
And her case was so hard.
It
was so hard.
Long.
It was very hard, because they told her 3 times she was going home.
Right.
And they took it back, So imagine the emotional pain of thinking you're going home, then they take it back.
I can't even imagine.
I can't either. And so I think that's how our friendship really began, because I said to myself, any of us could have been Lisa. Lisa she's a very young woman. She didn't deserve her life to be, I don't want to say taken, because I think that Lisa has purpose
Yeah.
to be here longer, but they took a lot of her health away very soon. She's just 44. We're 2 years apart. I'm 42. She's 44. She's a young woman. Lisa is very strong. Lisa's very, very smart. She gives me advice a lot on, things with business, and, she'll tell me, you should do this, and the way I structure certain things and stuff like that. She's giving me advice, and even advice with, my oldest son, things I talk to her about. She's a very strong and smart woman. And I tell her all the time, she has a great purpose in this world. And I know she does, because none of us, I can't say any of us would have made it through what she walked through. She walked through hell. She walked through death.
Yes.
I feel like Lisa looked death in the face quite a few times. It was many times her and I had one conversation in prison. I felt bad that I kept telling her to not give up. And she was really, really sick.
Mm-hmm.
It was real. One time she was real. She was sick a lot, but she was really sick, where she was throwing up. She couldn't control her bladder. She was having these spells that were causing her to she was saying how she couldn't keep control when she would have these spells. So I said to her one time, I sent her an email. I said, Lisa, do you want me to let you go? Because I know sometimes in life we keep people here longer than they want to. I said, because I'm in here to fight till you get out. I said, I think that you're going to get out, but I don't want to keep you here and you're going through. And she sent me that email. She said, no, we're going to fight. And we fought. And it was not easy at all. It was very, very difficult. It was very emotionally draining. It's very emotional to see her go through so much with so many people not wanting to help her. And Lisa, I couldn't have said, I probably would have told God just to take me. But she had to bring something to her so humbling, because she would plead with them to help her. Right. And even when I would find out that she would be begging them for help, I would be so angry sometimes. I want to tell them, fuck them. That's just what I want to say, fuck them. Right. But it's her life. Excuse my language, but that's how I felt, because I hated hearing her having to beg them for help, and they wouldn't give it to them. But she was so strong. And I told her, I said, Lisa, you're going to live. You're going to walk through there. And she did. Mm-hmm. She really did. But she went through so much in that prison system that sometimes it's a thought that you can't even comprehend, that they treat a human being, that way. Like, this is a real person. This is a woman with a life and a purpose, who's loved and admired and cared for by a lot of people. And her life didn't seem to matter to them. To say to her, she has a muscle spasm and it's cancer. Mm-hmm. There's something broken inside these people, to me. So I have a lot of, I tell her all the time, I admire her strength, and the fact that she was so strong to make it through that very difficult period and walk out of prison and still fight for her life to this day says a lot about her. And I tell her that she needs to tell the world her story. And from the Lisa Crowe story, something has to change in the prison system.
And it will. It will. So I thank you for sharing that. Lisa, I just want to ask you, is there anything that you would like to say that you haven't said tonight, as a takeaway, just anything at all that you can think of? We do, admire your strength. Just, I know it takes a lot of your day-to-day, being sick, but like Marva said, we do believe you have purpose, and your story is going to be told, it's going to be heard, and that's the most important thing. You're going to save a lot of lives.
One of the things, I would like to see, and like I said, 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 of us can't make this change. It's going to take an army of us to do it. And if all the people that have been in prison before, or the people who has family that's in prison right now, or loved ones, we have to start telling our individual stories, our own personal stories, so that Congress and Senate and the people in positions of power that can make these changes can see that this is a pattern. This isn't just happening at one prison. This isn't just happening at the women's prisons or the men's
Right.
or certain prisons. This is happening at all of them. So we've got to be able to show that this is a pattern. This isn't just a one-time thing that's happened. And you know, you take so many women and men who are dying, and the BOP will sit and say they died from natural causes. Was it really a natural cause when you were neglected and was never treated for the illness? If you cut the main artery in your arm and they can stitch you up and save your life, or leave it open and let you bleed out, is that really a natural cause that you died from? No, there's things that they can do that can save people's lives, and they choose not to do it for whatever reason, because the money isn't coming out of their pockets individually.
Exactly.
Like I said, taxpayers' dollars. So you are saying we don't want to spend this money on saving human lives. So what are you doing with the money?
Exactly.
Well, where's the money going? What's happening to it?
Right. Where's the medical supplies going to? Why is it taking so long? Yeah, definitely.
You know, one of the things that people will think is crazy, you know, when you're in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, you know that you cannot get a Band-Aid unless you go to sick call and sit all day and pay a $2 sick call fee to get a Band-Aid.
Wow.
That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard of. And you take when the COVID started happening, well, when regional was going to come, they throwed out masks and gloves and wipes to clean things down. As soon as regional and Washington and all did their walkthrough, guess what happened? They took all the masks, they took all the gloves, they took all the wipes. We had
Wow.
none.
Wow.
And then they want to tell the public that they're doing making us stay 6 feet apart, this, that, and the other. The medical line was person to person to person. That line took anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours to get through on most times, 3 times a day. Those women were front to back, touching each other 3 times a day in that pill line to get their medications. And just how they lie about what's going on behind the gates. And yeah, when someone's coming in a position of power, such as regional or Washington, you know, they'll take and they paint over all the mold, like at Alderson. There was mold in the coolers, and so they would take and paint the inside of take all the food out, paint the inside of the cooler to cover up the mold. And by the time regional left after doing their inspection and stuff, guess what would come back after a few weeks to a month? The mold would come back through the paint. That's what our food was sitting in. The bathrooms covered in black mold. You know, what is this stuff because of the lung disease? Yeah, the asbestos. No, I understand that asbestos is not harmful to us unless it's disturbed. I get that. But when, like I was working in carpentry, I was constantly having to take up tiles that was asbestos. I wasn't supposed to be doing that. We wasn't supposed to be doing that. We wasn't supposed to be getting into walls that had asbestos in it. But see, the BOP, the individual prisons would rather make us as inmates do that and just act like it's no big deal, so that they don't have to spend that extra money to have a team of people to come in and dispose of the asbestos properly. That would be too expensive, because see, an inmate's life to them doesn't matter. And they prove that time and time again. They prove that by the way they treat us at medical. They prove that by when we tell the staff and we follow the chain of command, and we go to the medical director and we go to the assistant warden, which is the chain of command. Then we file the 8.5, which goes to the counselor, and we file the BP 9 that goes to the warden. And guess what my BP 8.5s and 9s and my 10s and my 11s said? All of them said for informational purposes. Every BP that I filed was returned to me for informational purposes only. That's all police for begging to be seen and to be treated, to be doctored. Well, we were down there. there was about 8 or 10 of us that was getting chemotherapy. Our chemo was done right there at the prison. They would come into the prison, into the dialysis room, and give us our chemo treatments. 2 weeks, they didn't even give us our chemo. And then Georgina Arsons is another lady that has just been a godsend to me and to my life. Huge supporter of me, and just she's went above and beyond for me and for my family. And I don't even know where I was going with the story with what I was going to say about Georgine.
Time. Take
Yeah,
it.
but it's just everything that so many people has done to just try to help me, and the doors that and my judge continues to deny me of the release. And right now, okay, here's like a simple thing that like the public needs to know. There's so many assisted things out there for people to get assistance, especially with COVID going on right now. And when people gets out of prison, to help them, get the things that they need. It might be like a food voucher, or go to a food bank to get a box of food, or to get a voucher to help get you clothes or shoes or whatever it may be, maybe to help pay your electric or water bill. But in order to do those things, you have to go in person. Well, the BOP is denying me to go to any of those appointments. They won't allow me to go. But yet that you have got me in a position that I'm too sick that I can't go to work. To file for your Social Security disability takes months. They told me 3 to 4 months. And that's with them expediting it, that they're hoping that I'll hear something between 3 to 4 months. It could be sooner, but with COVID, they wasn't sure. So why wouldn't someone who's trying to help themselves, and there's programs out there in churches and community-based programs that the BOP sets and talks about, we've got this, that, and the other to help inmates so we can keep the recidivism rate down. But yet you're denying me to be able to go to do those things.
Right. It sounds more like it would, like if you were not sick, sounds like this would make a person be a repeat offender more than anything, because it's about rehabilitation and being able to come out into society, like reentry programs, which we need them a lot. Everybody that goes to prison or jail aren't bad people. Things happen to people. So I just wanted, I'm so thankful that you were able to tell your story. I hope that you were able to tell enough of what you want to get out, to the public. I don't know if you're allowed to say people's names, that affected you, but if you are, say who affected you and who's holding you up and why, before, we get off of this story, if you're allowed to do that.
Yeah. Well, Russell, you're talking about like the ones that negatively impacted my life and the system stuff. Well, I mean, at this point, I mean, the truth is the truth. And one thing, like when I talk to you over the phone, everything that I've said about my medical is all documented in my medical records, not medical records that I did, but medical records that was provided to me by the Bureau of Prisons system. And so, when you're taking people, okay, my case manager, the lady who, when I would go to her, and I heard several other inmates, would ask for help, they needed help, was Miss Branton at Carswell. And her go-to thing was, I'm only here to be pretty. I'm not here to answer questions. But that's the only person we have to go to. But then when we go to our counselor or our case manager, who is her boss, that's the unit manager, is over her, and you would report it, it got swept under the rug. It was no big deal. It was brushed off as oh, that's funny or whatever, I'll handle it. And you never did hear nothing more about it. You would, we wasn't allowed to leave the fourth floor in February. they pretty much put us on lockdown over COVID in February. I've sent out numerous cop outs and asking, to be seen. I need to see my counselor. I need to see my case manager. And they never came. They never came. I would tell them I'm too sick to sit there. And Miss LeBlanc was my counselor that was there, and she retired while I was there. And she was the one who took my priority box and continued to lie to me and did not even mail my priority box out until over a week later. And she sat in the room and listened to the conference call between me and my lawyer about how he needed this paperwork of my medical bill so he could prove to the judge that the BOP was not telling the truth, that my cancer was actually getting worse and not better. Dr. Lang, the director of the medical director there, he wrote a report to the judge, to my judge, Danny Reeves in the 6th district, and said that my cancer I was getting better, that I was mobile and could take care of myself. And I hadn't been able to take care of myself back when I was at Alderson. But how could he have known? Because I wasn't being seen by a doctor there at that prison. Mm-mm. So how can you write a report on someone's condition if no doctor has seen me to know the condition I was in?
Right.
But it came down to a point that the system failed me so badly, and this is my opinion only, that when I got to Carswell, nobody wanted their hand in the cookie jar. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This was a pile of mess that nobody wanted the dirt on their hands.
Yeah.
So everybody ignored me because they knew if they seen me, then guess what? Their hand was in the cookie jar now. Mm-hmm. And I got put aside. And by the grace of God, I'm still here.
That's right.
The reason I'm still here is because of God. And when my oncologist came in and told me the other day, when I went to my doctor's appointment, he said, "Don't ask me how." Did the CT scan report come back, and he said, "The cancer in your liver is completely gone. One of the gone." He said, "Your cancer is not spreading. All the cancer in the areas that's still there has gotten smaller." That's God.
Yes, it is. You have purpose.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And so for all the women that's still there, and there's a lot of sick women on the 4th floor. And to my understanding, my sister called me tonight. She said, I believe she said there's a little over 600 women now has COVID there. They have her in a tent out on the yard. That's where she's at, tent. I called Marva. She was in the quarantine room for 2 days. They hadn't brought them ice, not one time. They had not let them take a shower. She was in there all day Monday and Tuesday. They had no ice, no hot water was brought to them. They get what they call one hot meal a day. Those meals aren't hot when they come to those ladies. They bring them styrofoam plates, and they're soaking wet from where they were hot, and they were closed up, and the food is so cold and soggy it's unedible. You get a little baggie full of stale cereal in the morning. Most of the time the milk is sour. And many times I sit and I talk to the guy over the kitchen, and I said, "This milk is sour. We can't even eat the cereal if you keep sending us sour milk." They didn't care. Half the time the fruit comes to you, the fruit's rotten. If you get 10 pieces of fruit, I guarantee you at least 7 of them they're going to be rotted fruit.
Gosh. So
but I think that's okay to, there's many women in there, they don't get commissary. All they have to live on is the food that is provided by that prison. And you're bringing women curdled milk and rotted fruit and portions of food that is so small that a child in elementary school wouldn't even be enough for them. And then when you say something and you complain about it, then they'll tell you right to your face, "Well, I'll show you how we can downsize the portions." And then guess what? The next time you get food, guess what? The portions are smaller. Because when you complain, then there's the repercussions that come with it. When you report behaviors, there's repercussions that come with it.
Well, I really appreciate you telling your story, and we're definitely going to get it out there. Also, Marva, thank you for assisting you and your sister as far as so that she can be home. You can let them know like about your advocacy as far as the federal village. If you want to continue on those works, no, like, but more on your plate. No, I'm just messing. But I have to have some sense of humor. Also, Lisa, we will be actually advocating and putting your story out there and praying. Like I said, you and Marva said you have purpose, and this story needed to be told, not just for you, it's helping so many other people, so many other women, so many other men. If you can just leave like how to reach you at Federal Village, that's fine. And then Lisa, the last part would be a take generation, our children, something that you can leave with them so that they don't get, I guess, how can I say it? So that they don't put themselves in positions where they would have to be incarcerated and go through what you're going through. Because not only are you helping people that are in prison, that are sick, that are going through, you're actually sending a message to our youth right now, the ones that are out here just doing dumb crazy stuff. It's not all glam and all of those things. They need to know it, so
Yeah.
Yeah, like for them, the best thing I can say for them and the advice that I can give is no matter how bad things get and no matter how you think like there's no way out, there's always a better way than taking the path of committing crimes and selling drugs. And one of the things I never really looked at was the devastation that I caused to lives by choosing to sell drugs to people, and the effects that I have, and I have a lot of remorse for that. And it took me a long time to find forgiveness in my heart. What I've done in the past, I can't change, but what I can change is what I do in the future. And, I felt like I had no other choice. I felt like I didn't have a way to pay my bills. I went through a divorce. Was raising my two nephews, and I had my biological child. And I was afraid I was going to lose my home, and I had bills. My bills was more than I could afford, and I made a choice to go down a path that I regret.
right.
And looking back, there was a lot of different avenues that I could have took. I could have went and looked into getting assistance, but that pride was what got me. And if there's anything that I can give advice to is sometimes we have to set our pride away to the side. We have to humble ourselves and say, I need help. And that was my biggest thing. It was hard for me to ask for help. I was always the one that took care of everyone else. So for me to become so weak and vulnerable that I couldn't do it on my own and I couldn't take care of my family, it was hard for me to accept that. So I chose to do things that I truly regret, and my choices has affected not only my life dramatically, but it's also affected my children's lives dramatically. And so, right now that's my main purpose, with my kids, is getting their life back on track so that they can be successful and grow up and be someone that they can be proud of, and their children can be proud that that's their dad. And so they don't follow or continue to follow like in the footsteps that I chose, and so that they know that there's more to life out there, and there's help. There's people that will help you if you're trying to help yourself. We just can't throw the towel in. When we throw the towel in and we say I can't, then we can't.
Right. Well said, well said. And I know Russell's hiding. Hey, Russell. But anyway, no. Hi. How you doing today?
Every word.
I know you've been listening. No. But thank you for being there for her. I'm a little clown too. And Margaret, if you would like to end it out about Federal Village, that would be great. And I appreciate you all this evening. Air on Sunday.
Okay. Yeah, with Federal Village, you can follow us on Facebook. We have a Federal Village page. where we continue, because the biggest thing is we are continuing to support Lisa. We do have a GoFundMe on Marsha's on my sister Marsha King page, because that's where I advocated, and on Federal Village. Okay, you can also email me at federalvillage79@gmail.com, and we can also make sure that you get the GoFundMe or donate to her by Cash App, however way that's convenient, because we are continuing to provide Lisa with support so she can continue her fight with cancer and still be able to be taken care of, because she is very restricted, because she's very sick. And Russell is her 100% caretaker as well, so it's not the best situation for them with the corona going on and then her situation. Absolutely. So please make sure you reach out to us at federalvillage79@gmail.com, or follow us on Facebook or Instagram as well. I think that's about it. We're continuing to fight with justice. You know, justice never sleeps.
No,
but we definitely want to make sure that we continue to support Lisa, because as she said, she has a story to tell, and we're going to be pushing the Lisa Crowe bill soon. That's in the work as well, where we're going to get legislators to push that bill, so this will never happen to anyone else as well. So
is there anything that the public needs to do to help push the Lisa Crowe's bill?
Well, we have to finish working on it with Lisa. And then once it's finished, then we can tell the public what we need to do to help push her bill, because it's her bill. So we want to make sure that it includes everything that she wants in it. But the biggest thing is to stay connected with her, stay connected with me on Federal Village. And that's on Facebook or under Marsha King's page, or follow us on Instagram. And please make sure you email me at federalvillage79@gmail.com if you want to help us to continue to support her through the GoFundMe that goes directly to her, as well as the other means that we have to make sure that she's eating the right foods, because it's a little bit more expensive, and just getting all the things that she needs. So that's it.
Okay, Lisa, anything else to close out with? I appreciate it. It's been such an honor to do the story, and we're definitely going to push it out there, and I'll send you all the links that you need to have for Sunday, so when it's aired and posted on all the pages, you can share.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
You good? You have anything else you want to say? I know you're tired. I want you to have self-care. Everybody take care of themselves. So I appreciate the opportunity. Have a good night. Mask off, and we'll be talking to you soon. Okay? All right. Okay, so I paused the recording. Now I need to save it because I don't want to stop it.